Hey guys, where are all my anime nerds at? Today I've got something super exciting. I got to partner up with Viz to bring you Dio from Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. I decided to do a little something extra and did his stone mask as well. So I hope you like it and stay tuned to see how I did it. As with any look, you'll want to start off with good skincare. You can use the moisturizer of your choice. Here I'm using a hydrating mist and tapping it into my skin. Then I'm generously applying some lip balm. I'll need to cover up my eyebrow for the stone mask half. I'm going in with prosthetic adhesive and brushing it in the direction of the hair growth. You can clean the edges with your fingers and flatten down the hairs with a spatula once the glue has dried a little bit. Now for Dio's half, take some light full coverage foundation. I'm applying it with a flat brush so I can have a fuller coverage and so I can make the edge cleaner. Once the glue on the eyebrow is dry, you can set it with some translucent powder. Then add another layer of glue, always trying to flatten the hairs as much as possible between each step. You'll also want to set your foundation with some heavy coverage powder. This will make your skin look as flat as possible. So we covered up one eyebrow. Now it's time to draw in the other one. I'm going to be using a blonde brow gel for this. I'm filling in my whole eyebrow and extending the front into a point. I'm also making it super angled and pointy where it arches. I concealed the end of my eyebrow with some of the heavy coverage foundation. I set it with powder, then I created a new tail that was much more arched. I then darkened up this tail with some brown eyebrow gel. This just helps to define the shape a bit more. Once the glue is dry, you can flatten the hairs down with your finger and then further flatten them with a powder puff and some translucent powder. And yet again another layer of glue. Now with some black liquid liner, I'm going to give my eye a new shape. I want to really extend the inner and the outer corners. The bottom lash line will need to be squared off, and he's got one hell of a cat eye. This part will totally depend on your own eye shape. In my case, for the external flick to match up with the rest of the liner when my eyes are open, it creates this funny sort of V shape when my eyes are closed. So I just went in and filled my whole lid with liquid liner so it wouldn't look funny when my eyes closed. Now for the last layer on your eyebrow, you'll really want to press down with a powder puff. Now I'm taking a black liquid liner with a super thin applicator to do some detail work. I'm tracing all around my eyebrow. Now with some dark concealer, I'm going to simulate the shadows on his face. It's better if you follow your reference picture while doing this. I'm creating a shadow under the eyebrow, under the nose, and under the lips too. But first I'm blanking them out a bit further with a foundation. In the reference I'm using, Dio has a scar on his cheek, so I'm doing that with an even darker concealer. Then I'm going back with that really thin liner and creating all the outlines. Be sure to create a new eye crease above your thick liner, and he also has a bunch of little lines under his bottom lash line. His mouth is pretty thin and wide, so I'm extending the corner of mine. Then you'll want to tightline your waterline with a black pencil, and this half's done. Now to get started on the stone mask half, you'll want to set your base with gray face paint. But before you apply it, you can clean up your edge with some makeup remover on a Q-tip and make it as straight as possible. Then just apply a nice even layer of gray face paint. And go in carefully to make sure your edges are really straight. Apply a second layer if needed once the first one is dry. Then I'm creating a textured sponge by taking a regular makeup sponge and just picking at it. Now with that sponge, you'll want to start creating dimension on your face by going in with some white face paint. I'm taking it on all the high points of my face, anywhere that I want to highlight. So I'm concentrating it on my forehead, my brow bone, my cheekbone, and my chin. If you get some over the edge, just tap it off with your finger while it's still wet. Then take another textured sponge and define the shadows with some black face paint. You'll want to define the hollows of your cheek, your chin, your nose, and your temples. You can apply it lightly on the rest of the face just to give it some texture. To give the cheek a really hollowed out look, you'll want to go down with a contour once it gets in line with your eye. Now with the black face paint on a small brush, I'm going to draw in the mask's features. I started by filling out my eyelid with the black, but leaving the edge along my lashes blank. You'll just want to follow the reference image to create a new temple shape and nose shape. I also mapped out the shapes on the forehead. In some references, the mask has a design on the forehead and under the eye. You'll want to create a whole new shape for the lips too. They're really full and have a really pointed cupid's bow. Once all the shapes are drawn in, you can go and start shading them in. You can use a flat brush to help. When using it, tap it along instead of dragging it so that you can create texture. I went back and forth between shading with a flat brush and defining the lines with a thin brush. To define the lines even more, I went in with a black liner that has the really thin applicator. I also used this liner to create a bunch of little cracks in the mask. It's good to vary the thickness and the length of these cracks. The mask is really cracked, so don't be afraid to go overboard with these. They also help to give it more of a stone texture. Then with a thicker black liner, I defined some of the bolder edges. For the outer outline of the face, I used the black face paint. I also outlined Dio's half and created a new shape for the chin. His face is really long and thin, so I accentuated the angles. Then I defined more of those lines and drew in the little vampire tooth on the mask. Then going in with some black eyeshadow, I set the liner on my eyelids and used it to deepen all of my contours. For some finishing touches, I highlighted all the black detailing I did with some white liquid liner. You'll want to apply it right along the edge of the black lines, especially around all the little cracks. This really helps to make them stand out. Don't forget places like your nose and the outer outline of your face. I thought Dio's side was too plain, so I decided to add in some more shadows with a really dark foundation mixer. I also mixed it with a slightly warmer tone too. Don't forget to shade in your neck and your ear. And that's the makeup done. Now onto the very tricky wig. This may seem a little weird, but I guarantee that it's safe. Because I don't have long hair that I can clip the wig onto, I'm having to apply glue to my hair. But this is the same glue that I used to cover my eyebrow. You'll want to apply some glue on the wig cap as well, where you're going to stick it down. You could cut a wig in half for this, but I'm just using a full wig on its side. I'm wrapping a big scarf around my neck and giving the bangs volume with some hairspray. His hair is pretty crazy, so you can make them as puffy as you want. I did some final touch-ups, refining my lines, and I also painted the mask ear, hair, and neck with black face paint. And that's the finished look. Let me know if there are any other characters from JoJo's that you'd like to see me tackle. And if you don't know JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, you can head on over to viz.com to read the manga and watch the anime. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!